welcome everybody to Ursuline College's virtual legal studies meet and greet. Tonight is a informative virtual event, hopefully to get any and all folks that are interested in legal studies, not only provide more information, but also hopefully get you excited about the legal studies program at Ursuline College. One of the great things about Ursuline College is that we are a small private liberal arts school, about 20-25 minutes depending on traffic east of Cleveland. We are nestled in a lovely suburb of Pepper Pike, and we have students that come to Ursuline that are primarily women. About 90%, if not more, of our students are women. But we do have programs that are designed for fresh out of high school students. We have programs that are designed for adult learners through the UCAP program. We also have the traditional daytime program, and we also have graduates that are able to come to Ursuline. Both men and women attend Ursuline College for our over 20+ daytime programs. Tonight, we will be focusing on one of those programs, the Legal Studies program, where we'll have some lovely participants. And I'm so excited to now introduce to you, next slide if you will, our panelists for this evening's Legal Studies virtual meet and greet. For those of you that aren't familiar with me, my name is Kate Teichman. I am an admission counselor in the Ursuline College Accelerated Program, or UCAP. Also joining us tonight on our panel is Ann Murphy-Brown. She is the Associate Professor and actually the Program Director of the Legal Studies program at Ursuline College. So welcome, Ann. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are also I am also very honored and privileged, as well as Ann is, to have two former Legal Studies alums with us here tonight as part of our student panel. I would first like to introduce you all to Cory Mcardle. She again is an alum of Ursuline College. Hello, Cory. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this evening's event. And last but not least, our last panelist, also an Ursuline College alum, is Cathlin Pennell. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight. Those will be our panelists for tonight. And keep in mind that if there's something that we go over and you want us to give us some more clarity, feel free to put that question in that chat for tonight. There will be that option to ask any and all questions. So enough of me. I'd like to turn it over now at this point to our Associate Professor and the Director of the Legal Studies program, Ann Murphy-Brown, to talk a little bit more about the Legal Studies program for not only the adult students, but also for the daytime students as well. Ann?
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to be part of this forum and to talk a little bit about our legal studies program. I think Kate gave you a good background about what Ursuline College is all about, and I guess what I'm here to talk about is why legal studies. So a lot of our students who come to legal studies kind of have the same traits. They are normally our type A students, right? I think our graduates can attest to that. People attracted to legal studies are organized and driven, they're curious, they're resourceful. And so these traits prepare you for a career in the law. We give you the education to back that up. So our legal studies program, we have both a traditional day program and an evening program through our Ursuline College Accelerated program, UCAP, for adult students. The classes that we offer mirror a law school curriculum. So in law school, you might take criminal law, or you might take civil procedure, or you might take legal research and writing. We offer very similar classes, but with a practical component. So to give you an example, when I was in law school, I took contract law. I never actually read a contract in contract law. We spent most of the time reading cases about contracts. But in our program, you will not only read contracts, you will draft contracts. You will become intimate with how contracts work. And part of the reason why we're designed this way is because we are an ABA approved program. So our program at Ursuline College has been approved by the American Bar Association. What does that mean? The American Bar Association comes in and reviews our program. They look at our curriculum, they look at our courses, they look at our instruction, our instructors, they look at our objectives, and they say, okay, we've looked at everything, we visited your campus, they come every 7 years. We also have to file interim reports with them to show that we are providing a quality education, that our graduates are successful in their careers because they have had the foundation that we've provided. We're very proud to be ABA approved. Right now, I sit on the American Bar Association Paralegal Standing Committee, so that also gives Ursuline College a seat at the table in terms of paralegal policy and what's going on around the country. So we're very proud of that. So as I said, we emphasize hands-on skills. Some of that might mean you might be taking pretend depositions inside a classroom in an evidence class. You might be, like I said, negotiating a contract or drafting a contract. You're certainly going to be drafting documents that you would be filing in court. So that you really will leave this program as a graduate with a portfolio of documents that show what you can do as a paralegal. The other thing that we emphasize in our program from the very first class working. We have something that we call the Ursuline College Legal Community, and we keep track of all our graduates, all of our, it's saying my internet connection is unstable. Am I still okay? Okay, good. We keep track of all our graduates, all of our instructors, our mentors, our advisory board, and that network that we've put together becomes your network as a member of the Ursuline College legal community. So if you were to say to me, gosh, Anne, I really want to work in the prosecutor's office, I would say, well, that's great, because we have a graduate who's a senior paralegal at the prosecutor's office. Why don't you have a conversation with her and see how she got where she got, and tell her about your interest and try to find out how you can work your way into that position. Because I do feel very strongly that, this degree is of no use to you unless you can find a position that you really love. Now, it might not be your first position that you love, but down the line, you should find something that you really enjoy. For a lot of our students that graduate from the program, that means they're going on to become paralegals. About 50% of our students have that title. Another 40% of our students graduate to become something what I call quasi-legal. So they'll become lease administrators or compliance officers. We have someone who's the director of records for a large public organization. We have, like I said, students or graduates in the prosecutor's office. So it may not be the title paralegal, but it's something working in the law. Particularly those students that go on to corporations don't always stay with the title paralegal. Sometimes they move around to other departments. So we see that a lot. And we do track our graduates every 6 months to see where they're at. You stay a part of our legal community. You are part of our network. And then the other 10% of our graduates head to law school. And if you're thinking about law school, I become your law school coach through the process, because not only am I the director of the legal studies program, I'm also the pre-law advisor for campus. So what that means is I am staying abreast of all of the important developments with what's going on with law school admission. I'm attending Midwest Association of Pre-Law Advisor meetings. I'm in contact with the Law School Admission Council, particularly right now, to find out what's going on with testing to get into law school because of the COVID situation. So I try to really keep my ear to the ground in terms of law school admission. The other thing that we have is we have partnerships with 2 schools, and we're working on the 3rd, whereby you can do 3 years at Ursuline College and then 3 years of law school and finish those 2 programs, you know, in 6 years rather than 7. So we have a partnership with Catholic University in Washington, D.C. with their Columbus School of Law. And we also have a partnership with Cleveland Marshall School of Law here in Cleveland. And we're working on one with Dayton. So I'm hoping that'll come to fruition. Of our students that have gone on to law school in the last couple of years, we're very proud to say we've had 2 that have gone on with full scholarships and several that have gone on with half scholarships. And that's not usual. Law school is usually you pay for it all yourself. You take out loans. There aren't a lot of law school scholarships because oftentimes the profession says, you're going to make a lot of money, so we're not going to subsidize this through, you know, you're going to have to take out loans yourself. But we're very proud that we, you know, I particularly know how much those student loans weigh on our graduates and those going on to law school. So I look for every opportunity to find scholarships with our students. So what did I miss here? I talked about the curriculum with our practical assignments, our ABA approval, where our graduates go on. If you're thinking about law school, I'm your best friend. I really enjoy that part of the process. We do a lot with networking and hands-on skills. Any questions for me? Anybody? No, Kate, do you feel like I covered it?
I did. I just was wondering if you might want to, and again, if this is something you want me to cover, but we do kind of have, if you will, 2 variations of legal studies. We have the one that's designed for the adult accelerated folks, and then we have the one that's for traditional daytime students. Do you want to touch on a little bit about that, if and how the program is different between those 2 options, and then whatever you want me to fill in, I'll handle on that respect?
Sure. So as Kate mentioned, we do have 2 different delivery options. So we have our UCAP accelerated option. These are evening classes. So you come to class, each class is 5 weeks long. You come once a week for 5 weeks, or you're online once a week for 5 weeks right now, like we are. And it's an accelerated class. So you have about 20 hours of class time spread over 5 weeks. And during that time, you take that class intensely. So it's a 1 class at a time model. You can double up and take more than 1 class if you are doing well in the program, but we advise you real carefully on which ones to take together. And then we also have our traditional day program. It's the same content, but it's stretched out over 15 weeks rather than 5 weeks. This is, you know, our traditional, you might have a class on Monday from 9:30 to 12:15 in the morning, once a week for 15 weeks. Like I said, it's generally the same content, same assignments, same readings. It's just you have 15 weeks to accomplish that rather than 5 weeks. Oftentimes we have the same instructors teaching the class, and aside from me, all of our instructors are practicing attorneys or paralegals with advanced degrees. So they're out in the field doing this work. They know what's the cutting edge, you know, technology in the law, et cetera. So they're out there doing the work, so they're giving you the best information. And I also want to highlight, we do have one very special instructor who teaches our constitutional law and civil rights law classes, but only in the accelerated format. He isn't available during the day for our traditional day students, but his name's Avery Freedman. He's on CNN most Saturdays, and he's a national expert on civil rights and constitutional law. So we're very proud to have him as part of our stable of faculty, if you will. Does that answer your questions, Kate?
Yeah, that's perfect. You hit on it perfectly, that it's still the same everything. It's just the delivery format is going to be different. Daytime students are obviously, well, when things return to normal, let's just put it that way, will be on campus for 15 weeks. in classes for the legal studies route. The UCAP is still semesters, but we further break it down because we're in 5-week classes. We actually go by terms. So again, it's condensing normally a 15-week class into 5 weeks in the UCAP format. And again, there are those variety of options in UCAP where you would have online, hybrid, which is a mix of on-campus or online. And then we also offer the online exclusively options. So we have a lot of different variety of options for delivery for UCAP. Now, as of course, you know, everything is available online. It has to be online, but when things go back to normal, those are the two differences. There is one thing that I think that's important to just touch on, that we've gotten some really great accolades for this program. You know, you kind of hinted at it a little bit, but I'm about giving credit where it's deserved. So if you want to talk about that a little bit more, Anne, about the accolades and some recent little news, if you're privy to those recent things, just to talk about that a little bit more. And then also why that's important that we get accolades, and why it's also important that Ursuline College and their legal studies program is accredited by the American Bar Association. Why is that important when looking at a legal studies program?
So, you know, there are quality programs all over the country, absolutely. But for those of you investigating, you know, which schools you should go to, even if it's not Ursuline, it should be an American Bar Association approved program. The American Bar Association started to review these programs because there were so many like weekend paralegal programs. Become a paralegal in, you know, 2 weeks, and they would take all your money and you wouldn't be trained properly and you couldn't get hired. So by having a bachelor's degree from an ABA approved program, it's like the gold standard. This, you know, most of the larger law firms will want a bachelor's degree. And by having one that's ABA approved, you know, you have the highest credential to go in and work as a paralegal in any of these firms. What I'd also say is in the fall, we got word that we were considered a top 10 program in the United States. So we were really proud about that. And that was, you know, just a surprise. It just shows that every day we're working really hard, trying to make sure that the students and our graduates get what they need. And I think part of the reason why we were ranked so high is a credit to not only us, but also to the Cleveland legal community, that this is really a great town for law jobs. There's just a lot of legal work in the Cleveland area. So our graduates go on to good jobs. And that says something about our program, how well they're prepared, but also that there are positions out there that are ready and waiting for you. I mean, I send out jobs. That's something else that we do. Employers will contact us directly, and then we send out all of our job leads to all students and all graduates, so that, you know, even when you are beyond these walls, after you've graduated in a couple of years, if you're looking to make a change, we're still informing you of opportunities that are out there.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much for hitting on that. That's one of the questions that I know students want to know in advance. Why is that important? And I always like to say that although we are a small liberal arts college, we have big opportunity. And you mentioned the connections that students have with not only faculty, but then also for job placement. I know that that's always a big consideration. And if you just want to touch on that just a teeny bit about anything personally that you do, or any connections that you make either via LinkedIn or anything with regard to helping students not only get maybe jobs, or maybe even internships, if that's something that, you know, your students are looking for. Could you just touch on that briefly?
Sure, absolutely. You know, 2 of our students this semester did internships with the prosecutor's office. And when I went in to do the midterm evaluation and meet with their supervisors, what I heard was just, could we bring us more? These students are incredible. They already knew that they didn't expect the level of work that they were able to do. They ended up giving them some of the law students' work because they had such great skills. They were good writers. They had good technology skills. So the prosecutor's office was thrilled. We've also placed students in law firms and large corporations over the years. So those opportunities are there, mostly because we do have this incredible network of professionals that support us, that our graduates, want to talk to our students and want to hear how they're doing. We keep track of our, we have our Ursuline College legal community that we're so proud of. And I'm kind of blanking here how I can, I'll tell you a story. This is like my favorite my favorite story of a graduate. Present company, excluded of this because I love Cory and Cathlin as well. But we had a student who was in the program and she was working at a very small law firm answering phones, making coffee, answering phones, doing no legal work. And she was frustrated. And she said, I'd really like to be doing more. And I said, okay, well, let's start networking you. So she made a couple of phone calls. She started networking with our grads. And this is like 2008 maybe. So this is a while ago. So she gets a very similar job at a downtown law firm, larger firm, but it's in the intellectual property division. So she's not really doing legal work yet, but they realize she's bright and they're going to start training her. She hasn't yet finished our program. So she finishes our program and they promote her to paralegal. And she learns everything about intellectual property. She just takes it and runs with it. Then she gets approached by a headhunter who ends up hiring her for the largest law firm in Cleveland to be a senior paralegal in their intellectual property division. Okay, so she's doing very well. She's happy, she's making lots of money. Well, then one of their clients calls this large law firm that I won't say the name of, but it's the largest one in Cleveland, and says, we'd like to bring her in-house. She's amazing. We want to, it's like a high honor for the law firm to kind of, you have somebody hired out. So she gets hired by this large company. She's working there a couple of years. Then based on her reputation with them, she gets a call from one of the largest companies in the United States, moves to Kansas City to work. She's making a huge six-figure salary. And I cannot tell you about the first conversation I had with her about how she was so frustrated because all she was doing was answering phones. And I go back to that story all the time because I say she just kept working her way up. We kept networking with her. Particularly, we have good relationships with a couple of headhunters that will call me and say, hey, do you know anybody in intellectual property or do you know anybody in domestic relations? And yeah, exactly. And I know those people's names and I'll say, oh, I think so-and-so might be looking. Let me connect you with her. So this was just, she was a shining star that just went, and she's not an unusual story. I mean, we don't have everyone move to Kansas City, but a lot of our students have been in these large, corporations and these large law firms in town.
That's so wonderful. When I hear those stories, it touches my heart, and I'm so thankful that you shared that, because that's a great way to turn it now over. Now that we're hearing from the other side of the coin, to now our former alums of our program. And one of those alums we fortunately have with us tonight. I would like to turn it over now to one of our alums, Cathlin Pennell. If you would mind just reintroducing yourself to all the participants tonight and just giving a little bit more insights about where you are in the scheme of things and what Ursuline meant to you and so forth. So Cathlin, I'll turn it over to you.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. My name is Cathlin Pennell, and I graduated from Ursuline last May. I cannot believe it's been almost a year. It's been a whirlwind. I started actually many years ago at Ursuline, but I had to take a break for a couple years because I had family. I had teenagers, I had a baby, I had a life. It was hectic, so I took a break, but that's okay. If you start and you need to take a break anytime in there, they are so happy to help you with whatever works for you. And I chose Ursuline for a couple different reasons. One of the reasons was I had actually got my associates through Lakeland, and I was looking for a bachelor's option. And Ann Murphy Brown was my instructor a while back at Lakeland, and she said, you know, finish your associates, but then, you know, please check out Ursuline for your bachelor's option. And I did. And I actually I had a daughter, and my daughter's friend graduated high school, and I took them to Ursuline thinking that it was more of a fit for them. And we toured, and I loved it. And they didn't end up going, but I did. So I love the atmosphere at Ursuline. It's home. It feels like home. I've looked at other online classes for bachelors. I've looked at a university closer to home for me even, but Ursuline was the only choice. It was the only one that felt like home, is all I can describe it as. I felt like I fit in. I was an older student, but there were other older students just like me, as well as younger students. And we all became like a family. Some of us had the same classes together throughout our years, and some of us graduated together. It was just so neat, the whole experience. But I just wanted to stress that what we had last year, I had to take the class when it prepares you to get a job. And and nobody really wanted to take it because we were all working. However, when you have the opportunity to take this class, you are going to want to take it because it taught me things that I didn't realize I needed to know. It taught me negotiation skills. It taught me how to update my LinkedIn page so it's more professional to look. I'm not looking right now. I work for a large corporation. I'm very happy with what I do. But when I took that negotiation class, it just so happened that at my company, there was an opening for a paralegal in the department. I was a paralegal, but there was an opening for a senior paralegal that would do litigation work. I've never done litigation work before. I've done intellectual property. It's a very specialized area. It's a great skill to have, but I wanted to do litigation support. And in a corporation, it's a little bit different than it would be working for an outside law firm, because we don't do some of the stuff, but I would coordinate it, and I would track it. I track expenses, and I help with the tracking the cases and what's coming up and what we need to gather from people in our company. So when that opening came up, at first I asked my boss, I'm like, I don't know if I could do this. He's like, you most certainly can do it. You have all the skills to do this. And I applied, and at first they offered me one salary, and I had the confidence by taking that class that I said for preparing me for the job market. I had the confidence to negotiate, and I actually ended up negotiating a little bit higher salary than they offered at first. And I was so proud of myself for that and so thankful that I learned those skills at Ursuline. And I was also honored to be inducted into the Alpha Sigma Lambda International Honor Society, and Ursuline's chapter is Upsilon Chi, I think is how you pronounce it, Chi. And I was just very honored to be inducted into that. You have to have a certain GPA, and for me, I didn't want to just go through college and get through it. I wanted to learn, and I wanted to accelerate, and I wanted to show my company that I learned a lot. And just being inducted into the Honor Society just helped me show that I really took it to heart. I love the legal area. And is there any questions for me this time?
Thanks so much, Kathleen. I really appreciate your candor and your genuineness, because so many of our students are curious and they're afraid to ask. And so I'm so glad that you were so open with your experience with the law firm that you're with, but also your path, how you got there and how Ursuline prepared you. That is so lovely to hear that. And yes, it does go by quickly, doesn't it, that you feel that although a year has passed, that you did it and you were graduated. And thank you so much for that. And hopefully we'll have some questions towards the end of the presentation that might hit on some of what you shared on your path. So at this point, I would like to turn it over again to our other alum that we had over at Ursuline, that through the legal studies program, we are honored to not only have Kathleen, but we also have Cory Mcardle, who is also joining us. And Cory, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about your journey, your path, why it was that you chose Ursuline College, and what it is that you're currently doing, and any other insights that you'd like to share with any of our participants. So Cory, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, hi, everybody. My name is Cory Mcardle. I just graduated from Ursuline as well in May of last year with Kathleen. And so I'm a litigation paralegal at a law firm, a smaller law firm, but they're very prestigious in the Cleveland area. We do civil rights and criminal defense. And that is something that I was always interested in doing. It's work that I always thought that I was interested in doing when I first, so I was also a UCAP student. When I first went to Ursuline, I was working at another law firm. I was working in a different area of law that I didn't really like as much, but I really liked the people that I worked with. And I guess I didn't really have a view for, a like better job or something that was closer to my goals and my dreams. But going through Ursuline, I kind of expanded my horizons, and the opportunity for this job came up, and I decided to go for it, and they offered me the job like within 24 hours. So yeah, that's like a really good thing that kind of happened to me while I was still at Ursuline, but that was, my job was predicated upon, me getting my bachelor's. Like their job ad or whatever, like their job posting said that they were looking for someone with a bachelor's from an ABA approved school. So like Anne said, like that's really important. I actually was able to meet through interviewing for my replacement in my last job, I was able to meet some people who did not go to an ABA approved program, and the difference is it's really clear. Like there's definitely a really big advantage to being an ABA approved program because they give you the tools to write and research at a higher level. So I chose Ursuline because of the ABA approved program, because it's close-ish to me, and I went to Tri-C, and there's a matriculation agreement there. So I did 2 years at Tri-C and 2 years at Ursuline. I like looking on like LinkedIn at people in the field. A lot of people at larger law firms have degrees from Ursuline, so those kind of factored into my choice to go to Ursuline. Also, it being women focused, honestly, that's a pro for me. I went to an all-female high school, and that's something that I think is cool. The UCAP program is more mixed gender, but it's still majority women. So yeah, I think the connections and networking also that Anne was talking about, I realized when I got this new position that 2 of the instructors that I had at Ursuline had like a close connection to the attorneys that I work with now. So Avery, like I said, I work at a civil rights law firm. So Avery knows the attorneys that I work with really closely. And actually Melanie, who taught my family law class, is the aunt of one of the attorneys that I work with. So I know it's just kind of funny. Cleveland's really small, so you will be surprised. You run into people, and the legal world is really small. So you run into people again, and so if you make a good impression on an attorney who's your teacher, if you go to apply at their organization or their law firm years later, they'll remember you. Like teachers remember you, so I mean, I think that's a really important big part of having attorneys as teachers, like practicing attorneys as teachers, is that if they're in a field that you're interested in, that can really be an advantage for you. I'm also a member of Alpha Sigma Lambda, which is like a huge honor. And like, you know, like Kathleen, I decided to go for it with my bachelor's and try and do the best that I could. I was working the whole time that I was getting my degree, and, you know, with UCAP, they make it easier because obviously classes are after work, they're after work hours. And I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that I forgot to say. Oh, honestly, what Anne was saying about career opportunities, I get messages all the time from recruiters on LinkedIn. I'm not looking for a job, but I mean, the opportunities are there, and they're certainly limitless. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Cory. And before I turn it over, I'm just curious to know, because I'm learning as well. I'll leave this for, you know, either Cory or Kathleen. You both talked about your previous, you know, courses, but why in particular, if you feel comfortable sharing, why didn't you just stop at the associate's degree? Why was it that you continued on for the bachelor's? What was the advantage in your minds for going for the bachelor's as opposed to just stopping with the associate's degree?
Do you want to go first, Cory?
Sure, I'll go first. Well, I had thought that I was just going to get an associate's, and I actually spoke with the program leader at Tri-C, and Anne actually also came to one of my classes, and I thought that it would be better for my career. I thought that at the place that I was working at that point, I could get a raise, and I wasn't really thinking about moving jobs, but I wouldn't have the position that I have now without a bachelor's. So yeah, I think it's just a better choice for career growth.
Great, thank you. Kathleen, do you want to touch on that at all?
I agree. I wanted to get a bachelor's for at least 3 reasons. One, because I always wanted to. I was supposed to go right after high school and go to college, and that just didn't work out the way I had planned. And then I had my children, and I wanted to set a good example for my children too. But I also wanted my bachelor's because I knew it would help me advance in my career where I'm at. And I'd like to become a manager one day, and I need at least a bachelor's to progress to a manager level.
I just also want to chime in and thank you guys both for your testimonials of the program. But I want to say both Cuyahoga Community College, Tri-C, and Lakeland Community College both have ABA approved associate's degree programs. They are very well run. Their classes are they're ABA approved. We work really closely with their program directors. I come out to Tri-C and speak to classes. So we have a seamless relationship in terms of if you're transferring credits in from those institutions, they come in very seamlessly.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for hitting on that, because you're in the whole process of looking at different schools, and if you decide, you know, you want to segue on and move somewhere else, knowing that we do have that articulation agreement with that seamless makes it kind of stress-free, or as little to no stress as possible. So I'm glad that you touched on that point. So, you know, we've heard from our panelists at this point, and I'm really, really excited to hear from any of our attendees, any of our participants at this time. If you want to take a few moments just to think about it. You know, we want to hear from you. We don't want to just do all the talking. We want to know what you have that's burning inside that, you know, you want to ask not only myself as an admission counselor, but also, you know, we also have Anne, and we have this lovely student panel. So please, if you have just take a few seconds just to go ahead and put in your chat any and all questions that you have. I know that we do have some folks that initially had asked some questions, so I am going to ask those of our panel as well. So Feel free, if you've got any questions, again, from any of our panelists, they're more than willing to answer your questions as they best can for you. So don't be shy. Go ahead and just type them in there. We have plenty of time to address all of them and not have to worry about time at this moment. And also keep in mind too that if for some reason, although we have this question and answer portion of this event, that if there are any questions that come up for you and we didn't touch on them, at the very end of this, I will make sure that you get my contact information as well as Anne's information. Anne is very accessible and very transparent. She is more than happy and willing to talk with any students and be very honest and candid with them. And even if we're not the right choice for you at this time, she will at least try to guide you as best she can, because she knows what it's like. She went through the program, not with Ursuline, but she's a JD. So she understands what it's like to be in the legal community and so forth. So just keep that in mind. No pressure whatsoever, but just want to put that out there. So I did have one question that did come in, and I'm just going to throw it out there. So Okan, if you could just go ahead and unmute all the panelists at this time, because it's going to be kind of like open for whomever wants to take it on. So one of the first questions, and we did touch on this earlier, one of the first questions that did come through, what kind of jobs can you get with a bachelor's degree in legal studies? Anybody want to take that on first?
I can start us off if you want.
Yeah.
I'll start us off. Honestly, there are so many jobs, particularly as the world gets more complex, the legal field has to respond to that. So where are the really good jobs for people with legal training? If you have great technology skills, you are so marketable. You are going to have people falling down at your feet to try to hire you. And that's why now we actually require 2 legal technology courses so that you have the skills that you need when you get out there. But like I mentioned, they can talk about what some of their classmates are doing as well. A lot of our students a lot of our graduates go on to be paralegals, senior paralegals at large law firms. Usually, when do they start to excel in the field is when they specialize in something, whether it's litigation or business or corporate. And so they might be at a large firm or a mid-sized firm or even a small nationally recognized firm like Cory is at. That's one route. A lot of our other students will go on to work for large corporations. If you drive along the highways in Cleveland, you will see these giant Fortune 500 corporations, Progressive, Park, Ohio, Steris. Kathleen, what's the name of your company? Steris, that's it, yeah. There's so many of them, and they all have large legal departments. And so you may graduate and go on to work in one of the legal departments, or like I said, work in a somewhat quasi-legal capacity. That maybe you'll work for a large, there's a company here that does like leasing of shopping malls and things like that. So one of our graduates is a lease administrator for them. It's all legal work. It's just not titled paralegal. And then also we have a lot of students that go on to work in the public sector, that they'll go on and work for the prosecutor's office, public defender's office, the federal court. We also have something called HHS, Hearing and Appeals is here. We had a bunch of graduates who were hired there for a while. It's a federal job with federal benefits, and they loved those jobs. So they were doing a lot of hiring at one point. We still keep in touch with those grads. And then we do have a number of students that go into the nonprofit world that are working at legal aid or Summit County Legal Aid, because that's something that they always, felt a real calling to do. So hopefully that answers the question. There are a ton of jobs though, that's for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that that clarity, you know, to that question, because I know that a lot of people want to know, what can I expect from the job? So another one that came up, also in the same vein, what degree, and again, I'll leave this open, what degree would you recommend for a student that wants to work in a law firm but doesn't necessarily want a legal studies degree? Is that even a possibility in your experience of anybody on the panel?
Well, here's what I'd recommend. If you're going to work in a law firm, they're going to want you to have some legal training. It doesn't have to be a full bachelor's in legal studies, but you should have something if you want to get hired, you know, right away. So let's say you major in English, or you major in, I'm trying to think what else, political science or sociology. The other thing that Ursuline offers is a minor in legal studies, where you take 6 courses. And so you'll take some of the foundational courses, you'll learn how to do legal research and write legal documents. You'll learn some of the basics of the law, because it's very difficult to just go in with no legal training and be hired.
Thank you for that, Anne. That's always a good question, wanting to know, do I have to be in legal studies to work in a law firm? So that's helpful. Another question that came up from our panelists, asking, my friend is studying for her master's in counterterrorism. I was wondering what field of law would be your first choice and why? I'm not sure if that's directed towards a particular panelist, but if any of you want to tackle that one.
First choice for counterterrorism, can you elaborate?
Well, it sounds like what she's saying is her friend is studying counterterrorism, and she's asking what are kind of the hot fields in law right now. Cory and Cathlin, what are you guys seeing out there that you think are growing areas?
I think that Cathlin's field, intellectual property, is a really big one, big money maker. Honestly, I think it depends on what you're passionate about personally. Like my personal passions inform what interests me, but you know, some people I think are interested in other stuff that, like probate, for example, might be really interesting to them, or like real estate. It just depends on what is like your.
So, yeah, and I think it depends on what your ultimate goal is. So, so a good example is a probate paralegal. If you can master probate law and become a really good probate paralegal, you may not ever make a ton of money, but you will be able to really control your career well. You may be able to work from home. You may be able to work for a couple of different law firms because you're just in demand. Because, you know, one thing that, just like they say, there's always death and taxes, right? And probate covers both of those things. So there's always going to be work for you. It's very stable. It's very secure. What pays well right now, like Cory said, intellectual property, because what that is covering the technology and the ideas and development of ideas. It's protecting those legally. There's a lot of work for that. And there's a lot of work here because we are a manufacturing town. We have these large corporations and all their intellectual property has to be protected. You mentioned counterterrorism in your question, so I'll throw that in. A couple of years ago, we investigated whether or not we were going to do some sort of a major that would cover some things like that, like intelligence or, and what we found is that most of the jobs in that area are in the Washington, D.C., or outside of Cleveland. There is an FBI office here, but it's not a huge office. So we didn't go down that road. I do think counterterrorism, intelligence analysis, those are some big jobs. They're mostly in law enforcement, and a lot of them are outside the state, and most of our graduates stay pretty local. So that's why we, what we're doing is more broad-based than something like counterterrorism. Litigation is always busy. If you like the courtroom and you like that it has a real structure to it, so there's always something going on. with litigation. If you like being busy all the time, if you are somebody who's comfortable having a lot of irons in the fire, litigation is a good field. It just depends on what your personality is like.
You could add electronically stored information. If you know how to gather and store information, you are wanted. As well as, I think cybersecurity also is a big thing. If you could kind of get your bachelor's in legal studies and combine that with some kind, get in with your cybersecurity in a corporation, it's a big thing. It's huge.
Actually, in our LS 480 Advanced Legal Technology course, we offer that every, whenever it comes up in the schedule, but the next time it's offered, we're adding a whole section on cybersecurity because it's just so big right now. And that's a class that I feel like the class changes every time we teach it because it depends on what's going on in the world.
I have my certificate from that class.
Oh, good. That's right.
Yeah, is that something that, if a student is thinking, oh, I'm going to want to, spearhead going into one aspect of law, and then maybe they find out that that's maybe not what their calling is. Is that something that, if a student is kind of wavering or not really sure, a little bit indecisive, that would be something that you, Anne, as the program director, are willing to chat and work with the student to help him or her figure out what would be the best route for him or her?
Absolutely. And I think you can't anymore say, well, I'm going to go into this area of law, and that's what I'm going to do for the next 20 or 30 years, because the law is evolving and changing. None of us can say this is what we're going to be doing because these classes change every semester, the content changes, the way law is practiced is changing, especially right now with what's going on online and how we're all dealing with the coronavirus. So students often and graduates often have to pivot, and I love those phone calls 5 years down the line. I've been with my current firm for 12 years. I'm ready for something new. Who do I need to network with? Who should I be talking to? And, I really welcome those and help those students navigate those transitions, or those graduates, I should say, navigate those transitions.
Thank you so much for that, Anne. That's lovely. As a program director, you are accessible, and the fact that everybody can see your warmth and your willingness to problem solve and pivot, like you said, is wonderful. Thank you so much for that. We just have a few more questions and then we'll wrap it up. One of it seems like it's directed to me, so I'm going to go ahead and take this on. One of the questions that came through is talking about the Tri-C dual enrollment that we hit on earlier. So from an admissions standpoint, that's a nice opportunity to kind of check us out. What that dual enrollment option with Tri-C allows you to do is to take one course a semester at Ursuline College, but at the Tri-C rate. And the idea behind that is that you can kind of kick the tires, so to speak, and see if we're a good fit at Ursuline College and try us out. And there's no commitment, meaning that if you decide after maybe one class at Ursuline that maybe we're not a good fit, the class that you take over at Ursuline kind of reverse transfers back to Tri-C. So that class is not for naught. It will actually apply towards something. Also the advantage of this dual enrollment option with Tri-C is that you have two counselors, so to speak. You have a counselor that you will work with at Ursuline, but that you also have a counselor that you will work with at Tri-C. And so that's nice. You kind of know that you will have both ends of the spectrum really kind of taken care of. And so if you are fearful or not really sure about, what that would look like in terms of repeating a class that you've already taken, we at Ursuline are able to do preliminary degree audits for you based on transcripts. So that would be something that if you are interested in exploring that, you'll see in a few moments my contact information that you can go ahead and reach out to me directly and say, I'm interested in doing this dual enrollment option. Can you do a preliminary degree audit? And I will walk you through kind of next steps so that you can A, be informed, and B, know what it would look like based on your previous course history, what it would take to get a bachelor's from Ursuline College. So you would know that up front as well so that you can plan. So I hope I hit on that, but again, after we're done with the Q&A, I'll make sure that, you know, we put up our contact information. One last thing before I think we're almost out of time. We just had one more question that came through. Is the degree from Ursuline in the Bachelor's Law program worth it if you are not planning to apply to law school? I'll leave that open to our panelists.
Yes, I do think it is, be the short answer to that. If you want to go to law school, if somebody wants to go to law school, you can go with any degree. I often give the example that the #1 student in my law school class had been a music major in undergrad. And so you can have any degree going to law school. The advantage of having anything legal studies based is that you have some knowledge, you know, that you've read cases, you know how to write, you know how to research the law, and we hold your hand through it, whereas law professors will not. They will just throw you to the wolves. So that's the advantage if you do want to go to law school. If you don't want to go to law school, this career gives you the knowledge, the hands-on skills, and the foot in the door to get a good job, to have a good career that pays well, and that you can advance. You know, that you aren't going to be stuck because, oh, you don't have that bachelor's degree. You know, that you'll be able to climb, you know, whatever ladder that you land on in the legal world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for hitting on that. And again, we are just about out of time. So again, if there were any questions that were burning that you couldn't get to or couldn't quite wrap your head around at this moment, no worries. If we can go to the next slide, I just like to share with everybody that attended today my contact information as well as Ann Murphy Brown's contact information at Ursuline. We are both accessible. If there, for some reason, is a question that you direct towards us and we're not able to answer that, we'll make sure to keep you in the loop and find the right person that can help you with that. But again, we're a small school. We're very hands-on. We want to make this process as easy for you as possible. Again, we are accepting applications from any and all folks that are interested in applying to our program. We have a rolling application process over at Ursuline. So all that basically means is that if you're ready to get started at Ursuline, we just have an online application to fill out. It's free. It takes maybe about 15-20 minutes to do that and so forth. You don't have to do it all in one sitting. You can do it in pieces if that's comfortable for you. If you want that more in-depth advice before you're ready to apply, you can reach out to myself or to Ann. Although we are here to be as helpful for you as possible, we are all working remotely, and we will try to assist you as quickly as possible. With our program right now, we are all virtually doing classes and so forth. So just keep that in mind. That's not the goal forever, but considering this virtual climate, we have courses that you can get started with. Again, we have that online application that you can get started. And if you're interested in learning more about Ursuline or any of our other programs, you'll notice there at the bottom is our website. We have a lot of virtual events. We are on social media. This event, I mentioned this many times, is being recorded. So the nice thing is that it'll be able to see it on our virtual YouTube channel. That will be coming up in the next few days. This event itself will be listed, but we have a lot of other events. So if you ever wanted to learn more, go on a virtual tour, connect with us on Instagram, Facebook. We're on all forms of social media. We do have a career checkup that is coming up on Monday, May the 4th at 6 p.m. If any of you are interested, it's free, obviously. You can sign up for that. We would love to have you. That's guided towards folks that are looking for some more information about Ursuline and our career services. We have a very energetic career services coordinator who will be more than happy to work with not only you when you're a current student, but also at this Career Fit event. Again, that's on May the 4th. I would encourage you all to continue to explore Ursuline College and discover all of our programs. And if for whatever reason you have any other questions, there's our website at the bottom. And we are all done for this evening. I want to give a special thanks to all of our lovely panelists again: Anne Murphy-Brown, Cathlin Pennell, Cory Mcardle, and of course our behind the scenes tech, Okan Ertin, who was so gracious enough to be helpful. And again, I want to thank all of our participants and all of our attendees for spending this hour with us virtually at Ursuline College. I hope to see all of you again very, very soon. Thank you so much. Next slide, just a little plug one more time for thank you so much for coming to Ursuline and connecting with us virtually. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you again. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.